Allow me to introduce myself.
I am the last sane sports fan.
I am a genius by trade.
I just knew too much. Does that make me crazy? Does that make me crazy? Does that make me crazy? Possibly.
Hello everyone and welcome once again to The View from the Midwest. Well, today we're going to cover a little bit of a bigger topic. If I have time, I'll get into NBA free agency, but we'll see how things work out. The topic that I want to talk about today is something that goes to the heart of why I call this show What It Do. And basically, as you know, I call it The View from the Midwest because as a person who lives in the Midwest and is reliant on the big networks who are based in big cities or more populated areas of the country, you get a little bit tired of the East Coast and West Coast bias. So therefore, I wanted to kind of give a show that was based on more ideas from the Midwest and not tainted by, everything has to be based on a big city and it needs to be about New York or LA or maybe even Chicago. Now, Chicago is in the Midwest, so therefore I do cover them every once in a while. But if you notice, we don't have a bunch of stories about the Lakers or the Knicks or the Kings or the Rangers or the Giants or, I'm sorry, LA, you don't have a football team. At least not right now. But something came up here in the past few days, basically because of LaMarcus Aldridge being a free agent, and obviously he's doing his due diligence, going around to different teams and seeing who is the best fit and where it would make the most sense for him to sign with. He hasn't completed all of his team meetings yet, but he completed his with the Lakers, and sources say that it didn't go very well. Now, supposedly the reason for that is due to the fact that the Los Angeles Lakers, instead of pitching basketball reasons that it would be a good idea for LaMarcus Aldridge to sign, decided to pitch the glitz and the glamour and all the off-court stuff that comes with living in LA. Well, that's not for everybody. That's what people don't realize. That's what Mr. Kornheiser on PTI of ESPN, and he's also a radio show host, don't realize, because he made this argument a few days ago that basically he just brushed off the idea of LaMarcus Aldridge going to San Antonio, because how could you turn down LA? Because LA is just LA. Well, not everybody is into that kind of stuff. Not everybody wants to go out and party and do drugs and drink alcohol all the time and meet movie stars and be at different parties every few hours. And some people want to focus on what their main focus is. Now, I don't know what extracurricular activities LaMarcus Aldridge likes to do, and I'm not saying that everybody in LA or everybody in New York does drugs and drinks and all that kind of stuff. I'm not painting with that broad of a brush. But the bottom line is, once you get to those bigger kind of cities, the extracurricular activities available are tenfold compared to other places. And some people just don't want to be involved with that kind of stuff. And everybody has their own personal preferences, and it's not always what you would think that it would be. If LaMarcus Aldridge wants to focus on basketball, then quite frankly, LA, even if you take the extra stuff out of it and all the movie stars and glitz and glamour and all that stuff, even if you take that out of it, LA is not poised to win right now. If he went to LA, all of a sudden, okay, well, you do have a decent three there. You've got LaMarcus Aldridge, you've got Kobe Bryant for maybe a year, two tops, I think, the way his body is reacting. You've got DeMarcus Russell, and then nothing. I mean, I'm sorry, but the rest of the Lakers roster right now is garbage. So that's not necessarily a team set up to win championships. Now, LA is supposedly a more attractive free agent market than some of the other ones like Houston or San Antonio, what have you. But as long as Greg Popovich is in San Antonio, they get the kind of players that he needs to win championships. If you get LaMarcus Aldridge in there and play with Tim Duncan for a couple years and kind of renew that Twin Towers dynamic that you had when Tim Duncan was a young player playing with David Robinson, now all of a sudden you're filtering in that younger core. LaMarcus Aldridge is not young, but he's not old either. He's in the prime of his career. All of a sudden you put him with Tim Duncan for a couple years. Kawhi Leonard just signed a new deal with San Antonio. They still have some aging pieces, but they're kind of slowly filtering in some younger players that they really feel will help them continue this sustained run that they've been on, in which they haven't necessarily won championships back-to-back or year after year, but they're still one of the best dynasties in the NBA that we've seen for quite a long time. Back to the major point, though. Again, why I don't understand. I don't understand this idea that everything has to be based. Everybody wants to live in the big city. Everybody wants to become a superstar. Some people want to be a star in the town that they're in. Some people are happy playing in Portland. Some people are happy playing in San Antonio. I mean, if you think about it, it's kind of a knock on some of these other cities. Portland is a beautiful city. San Antonio is a beautiful city. These aren't necessarily small towns. Even if you go to San Antonio, you've got Dallas and Austin within a day's drive, really. These aren't necessarily places that are just, oh, I've got to get out of here. I just saw somebody sign a max deal with the Milwaukee Bucks. Well, the Milwaukee Bucks haven't done anything. So you could say, well, that's about money. Obviously, that's a big part. But some people are comfortable in some cities that aren't necessarily the huge, big megatropolises. It all comes down to personal preference, and the people who just desperately need to believe that the city that they're from, because it's a huge city like New York or LA, that everybody wants to be there, and anybody who doesn't is not worth our time or not worth our money or not a good player. They need to get over that, because that is not true. Michael Jordan may not have ever wanted to go to LA or New York. Maybe he was happy in Chicago. Now, Chicago's a huge city, but maybe he was happy where he was at. Maybe the glitz and glamour of Showtime in LA never really attracted him. Maybe he was happy winning with a team where the fan base was so appreciative that nothing else ever even entered into his mind. And again, I keep coming back to this point, but not everything is for everybody. Different personalities have different wants and needs when it comes to what they aspire to do in their area. I'm an extremely shy person in my personal life, yet I was incredibly comfortable going to a fairly large university in the University of Kansas. Now, I know some people, members of my family, in fact, that were 10 times more outgoing in terms of their personality, but yet didn't want to go to a large university, wanted to go to a small college because they felt that better suited what they were looking for out of that atmosphere. Now, according to a lot of people, those people who are proponents of everything needs to be LA and New York or certain kinds of markets, everything, maybe Boston you include in there, all that kind of stuff, the East Coast, West Coast kind of deal. Those kind of people would be like, well, that's insane. The shy person should have gone to the small school, and the other one with the big personality should have gone to the large school because that's what makes sense and that's what has to be. That isn't how it always works out. Not everybody wants to go to the same places. Everybody has their own center of what makes them happy in either their work or their extracurricular activities, their personal life, their home life, all these different things. Not everybody wants to be spending half their paycheck on a mansion in LA just because the property value is so much higher out there. Not everybody wants to be spending 3/4 of their paycheck on a suite in New York just because if you don't do that, then you either have to fight the traffic or you have to put up with people knowing where you live and knocking on your door at all nights of the hour. It's just, everybody has their own thing. LaMarcus Aldridge may not want to play in LA. If they gave him the best opportunity to championship, I believe that he probably would have signed there. I think LaMarcus Aldridge is concerned about basketball, and that's good to see, because I'm tired of all these people that go to LA, and you can tell that they're going for the money and they're going for the lifestyle, and basketball is a second, maybe third value right there. If LaMarcus Aldridge really wants to win championships, then more power to him, and I'm all for wherever he goes. If he goes to LA, then fine. If that is ultimately who gives him the best offer, then I'm not going to begrudge it against him. As a fan, I might not root for him because I don't care for the LA Lakers, but whatever makes these people happy, as long as the reasons are right, as long as it's not purely financially driven to where they want to win championships, they want to get something cemented as a legacy besides just millions of dollars in their name. One other thing that I forgot to bring up, though, everybody says that, oh yeah, you got to play in the big markets. That's the big thing. If you think about it, they don't always win the championships, though. LA with the Lakers, it's coming up on a decade very fast that they haven't won an NBA championship. The Kings have been fairly good in the NHL, but the Dodgers, they've won, but they haven't won any championships in a long time. Same can be said with New York. They haven't won a World Series in quite a long time for their tastes. The Mets, they've been up and down, and Knicks haven't won a championship in what, like 50 years now, maybe more? Well, no, there might have been one in the 70s, so that's probably more close to 40 years. It just doesn't work that way. Other teams win championships. It's not always the huge city, especially in a salary cap era, where you're not always necessarily going to just be like, well, it's always New York and LA, and maybe we throw Boston in there once in a while, and you give Chicago a bone every couple years or so. It doesn't always work that way. Sometimes the smaller market teams do manage to win. Oakland, San Francisco's not a small market comparatively to some of the Midwestern cities, but they're not necessarily LA or Chicago either. They won a championship now in the NBA. So again, everything is cyclical. Sometimes LA will be on top. Maybe the New York Knicks will finally get their act together, but it's not always necessarily the big markets that win everything. That is a view from the Midwest. What are your views on today's topics? As I said, comment, rate, and subscribe on YouTube. If you're watching on Facebook, give us a thumbs up and leave a comment there as well. But until the next time, I'll see you then.
I remember when I lost my mind. There was something so pleasant about that place. Even your emotions have an echo in so much space. And when you're out there without care,